All right, this is John Cola with okraw.com. Today I have another exciting episode for you, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back in time. One of my favorite movies back in the day was Back to the Future. But in any case, what we're going to do today is actually share with you guys a video that's been on my hard drive for a while. Actually, this is a talk I gave actually in the past winter time, and I shared with people attending the potluck my 3 easy ways to include more raw foods in your diet. And this is super simple. Besides just the simple tips that I'll give you, I'll share with you guys a whole bunch of the experience that I've learned over the last 18 years of eating a plant-based living in raw foods lifestyle. So I guess without further ado, let's go to that clip. What I'm going to talk about today is the 3 easiest way to include more raw foods in your diet. I've been living on our living in raw foods diet now for 18 years, so that's since 1995 is when I first started. And how many people have heard my story? Anybody here? Like 1 person, 2 people? Wow.
I read it.
You read it maybe?
Yeah. Health issues, right?
Right, yeah. So why I got into raw foods specifically was, I got into raw foods because I had a chronic health condition. It was actually called spinal meningitis, but that wasn't even why I started raw foods. Why I started raw foods because I had spinal meningitis. I was hospitalized in Kaiser in Santa Rosa, and what happened to me was the doctors told me that I might not make it out of there alive. It's a viral version of spinal meningitis, which is, deadly, and a lot of people, unfortunately, lose their lives all the time to meningitis.
How old were you?
I was in my 20s, so I just graduated from college, from Sonoma State, actually. And after that, luckily, through only higher powers, because the doctors couldn't do anything for me, and that's another thing that really rocked my world at the time. My whole thing was like, oh, you get sick, you go to the doctors, they give you a pill, they do something to you, and then you go home and you're fine. Well, hey, this time I went to the doctors and they didn't have any magic bullets for me or any drugs or nothing. So that's not a fun place to be, and luckily I experienced that at a young age to know that maybe the doctors don't have all the answers. I'm sure if I was hit by a car or something, some chronic emergency thing, they'd be great, but for everyday stuff, and a lot of the top diseases that Americans lose their lives from, or in my opinion, preventable based on diet. Getting a little bit ahead of myself here, but in any case, what happened was I made it out of the hospital, and upon leaving, I asked the doctor, well, doctor, why did I get the spinal meningitis? No, none of my other friends got it. I was playing broom ball. That's the last thing with my fraternity brothers, the last thing I remember. And then, nobody else was sick. And actually, they called the health department. They had to, interview me, and it was, a pretty big deal because meningitis is pretty serious. And the doctor said, well, the reason why you got the meningitis was because you have what's called complement immune deficiency. And I was like, what's that? Well, basically, to make it in layman's terms, it's basically a chronically weak immune system. So, most people might have a pretty good immune system, and they fight off things. Maybe your husband, your wife, your best friend, your roommate that you live with has a cold or has the flu, and you live with them day in, day out. You make sure to stay in bed with them, but you don't get sick. That's because your immune system is strong enough to fight it off so that you don't get that. Well, unfortunately, I was maybe dealt not the best hand when I was born, and I had a chronically weak immune system, and the doctors blamed it on my genes, which I kind of figured out that if they don't know what to blame it on your genes.
Yeah.
The other thing that was very interesting was from a young age I had other, immune type issues. So things like eczema, dry skin condition, asthma, and allergies, which are all autoimmune related issues. So after I got out of the hospital, what I needed to do was I needed to figure out how to not end up in the hospital again, because, I potentially the end of my life looking at just the hospital room and really thinking about, what's important to me. Even all the money in the world when I was in the hospital, I didn't care about money. But in today's society, we're meant to focus on just the money because that's what success is supposedly. But my success version of success nowadays is a lot different. It's just if I wake up in the morning, I'm a success. If I'm here to share my message with other people, I'm a success, and I get to do that on YouTube. I have over, how many videos do I have now? Over 1,200 videos. I've been viewed over 15 million times throughout people in the whole world. So I feel very blessed that I could share this message. I have a pretty decent voice to attract people's attention, and I think I just tell my story, and people really dig it. So I had to learn how to live healthy and not end up in the hospital, and I really valued my health more than anything else in the world. And most people we've heard the saying, your health is your greatest wealth. But people just don't really take it to heart, and I really strive to take it to heart. People do things every day, to compromise their health. I mean, one of the simplest things is talking on your cell phone. I mean, to me, that's really bad news. I mean, there's studies in Europe that are maybe being suppressed in the United States, maybe not, or maybe you're, think it's not so bad for you to use a cell phone. But if I'm using a cell phone or somebody around me is using a cell phone, I get a headache. And when my body gives me a signal, I need to listen. It's like if I punch myself, it hurts. It's like, hey, don't do that again, silly. It hurts. So if somebody's using a cell phone, it makes my head hurt. And there's instances of brain cancer and tumors that have been going up dramatically since cell phones are now out. Now, is there a correlation? I can't prove anything, but if you want to value your health, I'd rather play safe than play sorry, right? So, same thing with diet. Many people may put foods in their body that they don't know any better. But, a lot of this stuff like cell phones, people just don't know about this stuff. I mean, people don't know that, eating McDonald's diet could cause heart disease. Maybe they haven't seen Super Size Me. But, there's a big correlation with things that you do and what happens to you. Most Americans are overweight. They, may have diabetes, heart disease, and all the other big killers. But that's specifically because what they're eating. So I've had to learn over the School of Hard Knocks, because there wasn't any major, when I got into raw foods in 1995, there wasn't barely any raw food, potluck groups. There was actually San Francisco Living in Raw Foods Enthusiast, a group, SF Life, that I went to way back in the day. But there was no such thing as Meetup, and the internet was just getting started, so it was really hard to find information. So I read a lot of books and basically just dove right in and started doing it and seeing what happened. So as I've gone along, actually, I'm not just like, okay, this is raw foods law, that's what I'm going to eat. I've also tried to constantly improve. So one of my mottos is CANI, C-A-N-I. It stands for constant and never-ending improvement. So whatever I do in life, whether it's my diet, whether it's driving my car, whether it's using the computer, whether it's making a new video, I always try to do tomorrow just a little bit better than I did the day before. So same thing with raw foods. I've experimented now for the last 18 years with different style of raw foods diet, higher fat, lower fat, using extracted oils, not using extracted oils, eating maybe more nuts and seeds, and maybe eating more of a fruit-based diet, and taking supplements, not taking supplements, to see what would work on me, so that now I have more experience to share this with a lot of people, because for a lot of people, the raw foods diet is a pretty new thing, and it's totally kind of weird too. But I like to just think of it as, this is my lifestyle. I don't consider it even a diet, because you just need to incorporate it into your life. And another part of the lifestyle for me is actually growing my own food, which I think everybody, it should be part of their lifestyle. As Mary was talking about earlier, I mean, I've been on her for a while, the girl garden, and now she's so happy that she has it, and I'm so proud of her, and her tree collards look better than mine, and I'm jealous. It must be.
It's my heaven.
That's exactly it.
It is. It's a divine mother. It is. I'm
So,
very sure of it. Yeah.
So in tonight's talk, that's why I got into it, and so that's why I'm passionate about it, because I'm here today only because of raw foods and the other things I've done. So I'm going to share just some of the fast track tips with you, so that you can pass go and collect the $200 instead of ending up in jail in Monopoly if you pick up one of those cards. Because I don't want anybody to go through the School of Hard Knocks, because I already had to, and it's just, raw food is just really simple, and a lot of people make it a lot more complex than it really needs to be. So I guess the main point of this talk was to give my 3 easiest ways to include more raw foods in your diet, and that's just super simple. Number 1, eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. It's just very simple. We don't need to buy all this packaged stuff and jarred stuff. Actually, if I even amended that further, eat more fruits and vegetables out of your own garden. Or, from local sources as possible. Do I eat all local? Absolutely not. I strive to eat as much local as I can, but, certain parts of the times of the year, like now, it's hard to get, a lot of good in-season fresh fruits. So yes, I've been getting some that have been imported from a little bit further away. But I always encourage you, another thing I always encourage everybody is to always do the best you can. If the best you can is to add 1 extra apple today, instead of not eating that apple, that's an improvement over what you're doing the day before and your success. So, I hate when people say, oh, I'm going to be 100% raw for the New Year's, and then, they have we're all humans. We'll go for that one bite of cookie because we're at our friend's house and we're hungry and there's nothing else to eat. And there's I'm a failure because I didn't do 100% raw. Well, let me tell you another thing is that you don't need to eat 100% raw to get the benefits. The more fresh fruits and vegetables you eat, the more benefits you're going to get. I personally like to have as much benefits as possible, so most of my diet is fruits and vegetables personally. So besides just eating them fresh fruits and vegetables, just cut up in salads and eating an apple or eating a mono meal of blueberries, which I had for breakfast this morning. That's when you're eating one fruit or one vegetable at a time, a mono meal, just one thing. Two other excellent ways to include more fruits and vegetables besides eating them whole are, number one, juiced. So by juicing your vegetables, you could literally, like I did last night for dinner, I juiced one huge pumpkin that I grew. And you might think, man, don't you gotta cook pumpkin? No, you could actually just juice the pumpkin. I had pumpkin juice. It's high in alpha carotene, beta carotene, and a whole bunch of other nutrients and carotenoids and antioxidants with some apple. And actually, I put some tree collards in there too. And juice that up, and that was my dinner. I had probably about close to 64 ounces. So that was just, that's what I had, and that's what I wanted to do. And two of the ingredients were from my garden, so I like that. But yeah, juicing, so you could really pack in a lot more food than you could normally eat. Like if I was making some orange juice, I could maybe sit there and eat some oranges, but I could juice a lot of oranges and get that same concentration of the nutrition and have it a lot more convenient to eat. So you got to go to work and you can't just sit there and eat oranges all day, but you could take a nice bottle of juice that you previously made at home, which packs in a lot more oranges. Another thing besides juicing is blending. So making a smoothie, a fruit smoothie or a green smoothie. Or besides even just making smoothies, I make blended salads. So the salad I made tonight for the potluck was tomatoes, mangoes, and tree collards. You could put that same exact ingredients right into the Vitamix and blend it up and have a blended salad. So now you're going to get those same greens in you. It makes it a little bit different texture. Also, if you're a busy person, you can't sit there and chew your food really well, which I'm also a big advocate of chewing your food like 50 times, because if you're not turning your food into a baby food, like, when we feed babies baby food, that's because they don't have any teeth. We humans can't digest whole pieces of lettuce or pieces of kale because our stomachs are not set up like a cow's and we don't regurgitate our food. So it's really imperative that we break things down well enough, and when you literally Vitamix it, it breaks it down so you're going to get a lot better digestion from your foods. So those are three simple and easy ways you could all include more raw foods. And I want to talk about a few more things real quick. Let's see, I talked about how I have been successfully living on a 99.999% raw plant-based diet for the last 18 years. And once again, that basically is, most of my diet consists of fruits and vegetables. I do about a handful or two of nuts and seeds a day. I rarely eat any extracted oils. Oils are 100% fat, and they could really jack up your calories that you're intaking. I've learned that the more fat I eat, the more slow I am. So if I want to get slowed down, I want to just go to bed one night, I might have a little bit of omega-3 DHA oil, and then that'll just basically maybe crash out. So, I prefer to get my oils in the form of the whole nut and seed, or in the case of John, what about olive oil? Well, I'd rather eat olives because the olives have the olive oil in there, but have a whole other plethora of phytonutrients and phytochemicals that are contained within. And the same thing with nuts. So instead of eating nut oils, I'd rather eat the whole nuts. And the way I like to eat my nuts is basically for dinner, because I want to slow down a bit more at dinner time because I'm kind of getting ready for bed. I'll make a dressing. So say I have a lettuce salad or a celery salad. I'll just blend up maybe some tomatoes with a handful of nuts, or two at the most. And that'll fractionate the nuts, and now I'm going to get better digestion. And also it's giving me a nice fatty component to my tomatoes. And when you combine some antioxidants like the lycopene in the tomatoes with some fats, there's studies that show you get better digestion and uptake of the antioxidants. So I don't like to do a high fat diet. I keep my fat levels below 25% of total calories from fat, and fat calories can add up very quickly. So 1 or 2 handfuls of nuts and maybe an avocado a day, that's pretty much it. But that's where I'm at now at this point for 18 years on the diet. Of course, when I got into raw foods, I might have did 4 or 5 avocados a day. I'd do 4 young coconuts with the meats a day. And that's all right, because that's where I was at the time. So I don't want anybody to get the idea that you need to do this all overnight. Just kind of feel where your body's at and kind of go with it. But maybe, in my opinion, the goal would be to reduce the amount of fat intake. Another thing I've done is also I do take certain supplements. Vitamin B12, in my opinion, is something that can be very challenging to get on a raw plant-based diet. So I do take something. Actually, I put a vitamin B12 patch and also have a sublingual vitamin I take. That's probably the one biggest vitamin that may be deficient in people who are eating a plant-based diet. Another thing that's very important is vitamin D. That you may want to get your vitamin D levels checked. I have also started to supplement with vitamin D, especially when it's like the winter time, unless I'm traveling in the tropics a lot, because we're just not getting enough vitamin D. And that's not necessarily a raw food thing, or that's just a people thing. Like a lot of people are deficient in vitamin D. Another thing that I found lately, and I just did recently, I did a omega-3 fatty acid testing. And so that's a really difficult subject, because a lot of people, if you eat far too many nuts, especially almonds and sunflowers, it'll really raise your omega-6s and knock your omega-3 balance out of whack. So my omega-3 to 6 balance is better than the average Americans, but not where I want to see it. And if your omega-3 to 6 balance is not correct, then you're not going to be making the DHA and EPA, which are essential fats, which are so critical for a lot of processes. Our brain is mostly fat. All the cells out of all the cell walls in our body are made out of lipids. And if we don't have the right types of fats, essential fats in us, then we're not going to be operating optimally, and then we may not have the optimal health or optimal results we want from the raw foods diet.
Do you get it from chia seed?
Absolutely. So the thing is, if you want to get and be confident you're getting enough omega-3s, there's a few ways to do it. Number one is if you just basically do a low-fat diet and don't eat any overt fats. Overt fats are things like nuts or avocados. If you just eat fruits and vegetables without nuts and seeds and avocados and other fatty foods, your omega-3 balance, from what I've seen, is probably going to be all right, because leafy greens have a lot of omega-3s in them. It's only when you eat extra omega-6s that are in other foods, like many nuts have much more omega-6s than 3s. Another thing you could do is, if you want to eat a little bit of nuts, you want to really focus on the seeds that you're eating and focus on a lot more chia seeds and flax seeds. Those have a lot more omega-3 levels. And they say that hemp is pretty good too, but hemp doesn't have as much as the flax or the chia, but it has a better ratio than many of the other seeds. Like, for example, sunflower seeds knock you way over into the omega-6 category, which is not too good in my opinion. So that's another test that I recommend, and a lot of people into raw foods don't really even talk about this subject. They think, oh, you're going to be all right. So this is just what I've learned, and this is actually fairly recently. And I've been attending natural products expos, where actually I hear talks about guys giving talks on like how critical omega-3s are, and they're pushing their fish oils. There's also algae oils or algae-based oils, which is where the fish get their omega-3s and their DHA from. So you could take a DHA vegan supplement now if you are concerned about that. Another big question is always, either for vegetarians or even people into raw foods, is what about the protein? Where do you get your protein? I need meat for protein, and if you've been vegan for a while, you get this question too. So it's not really much different on the raw food side, except if you're on a raw foods diet, like I rarely eat any soy products. So you could say, if you're vegan, you'd say I get my protein from soy or nuts and seeds, and that'd be my last answer for raw food. So on a raw foods diet, I get my protein from all the food I eat. Even the mangoes and tomatoes, they all have protein or the amino acids, but in very small amounts. And in my opinion, based on some of the research I've done, one of the biggest problems in America is we're eating far too much protein, which causes a lot of disease. So we really want to, limit the amount of protein we're eating. If we're eating a natural diet with, fruits and vegetables and a few nuts and seeds, we're going to be fine and meet our protein requirements. Now, if you did want to eat a raw protein, there's many raw food protein supplements, which I'm not a big fan of at all, because if you go to the health food store and you see raw protein, it makes you think that, oh, the raw vegan diet must be deficient in protein, so I need to buy this raw protein powder. There's nothing further than the truth. You could absolutely get enough protein from fruits and vegetables alone. If you did want to add something that had high protein content that was still a food, the algae, so spirulina, chlorella, have really high protein percentages, but they also have a whole bunch of other nutrition. A lot of the raw protein powders are literally just protein without all the nutritional cofactors, the vitamins, the minerals, the antioxidants, the phytochemicals, and phytonutrients, which in my recent studies have been, which is probably one of the most important things to eat, is the phytochemicals and phytonutrients that are so protective for us. Let's see, the single produce item that most raw foods do not eat enough of, and why? Does anybody have a guess what produce item that most raw foods do not eat enough of, in my opinion?
Greens?
Thank you. Greens, kale, yeah, all the above. So dark leafy greens. Most people into raw foods, in my opinion, don't eat enough leafy greens. My goal every day is to eat 2 pounds of greens. So what I like to do, and what I also like to recommend, is actually people rotate their food. So don't just eat kale because it's the most nutrient-dense food. Don't even rotate kale and collard green because they're in the same family. But eat some chicory. I actually had the joy of eating this new vegetable that I got to eat like 3 days ago now. Is called puntarelle, and I'd never heard of it. And actually, well, I did hear of it, and actually I bought the seeds, but I never planted it out in my garden. But I was actually at Monterey Market in Berkeley, and they had this puntarelle, and it's like, what the heck is this? And it looked like a head of like, I don't know, celery. Maybe not even celery. It looked more like dandelion greens, but in the middle it was like this thing, like with all these little asparagus type shoots. And I was like, what the heck is this? So I had to buy it. It was $2.49 a pound, which is a lot, for greens and stuff. But I'm like, gotta try it, new green. Very rarely ever happens to me, that I get to try new food. And I chopped it all up really fine, and I ate it, and it was absolutely amazing. And I did some research on it, and it said, like, the Romans used to eat this as their salad green. And, like, why aren't we eating this today? Like, nobody knows about it. So I also just got some seeds at the seed bank in Petaluma to now grow some of this myself, because it had it's in the chicory family, and it had very mild chicory flavor. It tasted between, like, if you've ever had lettuce stems and like celery, and cross the two, kind of tastes like that. It was nice and mild, and it was just really delicious. So anyways, you want to rotate your greens. Today I'll do that, tomorrow I'll do spinach, the next day I'll do tree collards. The following day I'll do arugula and some more lettuce, and then I grow a whole bunch of different wild greens. So I was snacking today on some chickweed growing in my garden. I usually have miner's lettuce this time of year, but it didn't come back. So there's a whole bunch of different kinds of greens that you can't buy at the store that to get them, you need to grow them yourself. So I think if you rotate your greens and don't overdo any one, I don't think it's going to be an issue. I mean, in any different green, there's toxins in it, because the toxins are in the green so that the animals don't graze and eat all those greens, or the plant wouldn't be around anymore.
Like nettles.
Nettles is a great one. I love to eat nettles. Actually, my tongue burnt the heck out of me the other day from eating nettles, but it was wonderful.
Why? Ate it raw?
Yeah.
You're supposed to throw it in hot water for about a
No,
minute.
you could eat stinging nettles raw. The problem was I didn't roll it. I normally take one off, roll it, and put it in the back of my mouth, and then chew it up. It's no problem, but I was being cocky, and I just grabbed the leaf and put it in.
Ouch.
But it was kind of fun,
That's how it keeps animals and insects.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah. But see, the thing is, they say you got to put it in hot water, but what people don't know is you could actually take it and put it in a blender, blend it up, and that deactivates it, or actually juice it up. I don't necessarily recommend eating nettle salads, but you can if you want. So you want to really focus on eating more greens. I mean, I would recommend at least a pound a day, because greens, as Dr. Joel Furman says, are the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet. And even people into raw foods, don't eat enough. They have cancer protective properties and all these different undiscovered and unknown phytochemicals and phytonutrients. Let's see, why you don't have to eat 100% raw to get the benefits of a raw plant-based diet. People always say you got to eat 100% raw to get the benefits. Well, you know what? The more fresh fruits and vegetables you eat, however way you can get them in, the more benefits you're going to obtain. And hopefully, you're not going out and, going to bars at night and then drinking alcohol and eating junk food. But if you are, at least you're eating more fruits and vegetables to counteract that stuff. I prefer that somebody wouldn't do all that stuff too and just eat natural, whole, organic foods. Another big issue that I have is a lot of people get into this raw foods diet, and maybe they've come from being a vegetarian for a long time and then being a vegan, and then they're a whole food vegan. Then they get into raw foods, and the natural order of things is to do a whole food vegan raw diet. But unfortunately, which is great, which is what I think of, But a lot of people just come from conventional diet to raw foods, and they miss the part about eating whole foods. We want to eat whole and natural foods that are unprocessed, because there's many raw food products now that are highly processed, but just because they're labeled raw and not heated above 118 degrees, does that make them okay? You know, a lot of problems I think can occur with foods when we're isolating certain elements of that food, such as the sugar in like agave. They take agave cactus and then they just take out the fructose, and then now it's raw fructose. Now, why is raw fructose as agave better than high fructose corn syrup that's, you know, just heat processed? But it's still, they're both still fructose. Is it because it's raw, it magically works differently in our body? No, it still jacks up your liver, in my opinion.
So is that the same with fruit then?
The thing with fruit though, see, now I'm talking about whole food. So if you're eating fruit, yes, absolutely, fruit has fructose in it, but it also has sucrose and glucose, and basically in the single digits. You know, when you have like agave, it could be like 55% fructose. It's so far out of what nature would have us eat. And the other thing is, when you're eating whole fruits, it also comes with the fiber and all the phytochemicals and phytonutrients and vitamins and minerals. When you're eating agave, it's just pretty much fructose. So, you know, our body is meant to handle things as found in nature, because that's how we evolved. We didn't evolve to be eating, you know, agave syrup, because literally within the last, as I've been a raw foodist, when I got into raw foods, there's no such thing as agave syrup. It's like a man-made, created invention that only happened, let's see, I think I first learned about it in 1999. So that's when it first started to come on the market. And now people are like guzzling the stuff down. Oh, it's raw, it must be all right. Well, that's not my
What do you
opinion.
think? It
What about
spikes your
honey?
insulin. It's not good.
So honey has been around forever, and yes, it's not the optimal sweetener because it's also very high in sugars, but I'd rather use honey, because I'm not a true vegan, than agave, because at least it comes from nature. That being said, I don't necessarily recommend any concentrated sweeteners, because, you know, once again, it's a lot higher in sugars than what we would normally eat. So my favorite sweeteners to use are, number one, fresh fruits, because they're whole foods. Number two, dried fruits, because they're fresh fruits minus the water. You know, so those would be my favorite sweeteners to use if I had to make something. If I needed like a liquid sweetener, I'd soak some dates and then blend it in the Vitamix to get like a date syrup and use that instead. You know, but we all unfortunately are born these days pretty much with sweet tooth because of the conventional society feeding us sugar. So we always want these like sweet punches, and to get that you need concentrated sugars, and to do that, you know, people go back to, you know, a raw concentrated sugar, agave or a honey. And I don't really, well, a honey is definitely better than some of the other things and concentrated sweeteners. You know, I'd rather just be people losing their sweet tooth. Like my lunch today was just mangoes. I had like 10 mangoes. And to me, that's like candy. And if you want to even get more crazy, like candy sweet, you want to go to Trader Joe's and get their freeze-dried mangoes. Like, you taste those, you're just like, you could use those for a sweetener, powder that stuff up. It's just freeze-dried fruit. That stuff to me is like eating candy because it's so sweet. But once again, it's just a fruit minus the water. So we want to get back to eating more natural and whole foods.
But what do you think about the coconut crystals or the lucuma or the yakin syrup?
Sure,
Bacon syrup, oh.
so the question is, what about the coconut crystals? Number one, like, how the heck did they get coconut crystals out of coconut? Well, number one, they take the sap and they evaporate it off, so I don't think people would have ate that in the olden days. So I'm not a big, once again, it's more of an isolated sweetener because it's just sweet. Now the lucuma powder is different, because I've eaten lucuma fruit in Peru, and they basically take the fruit and powder it up. So that's all. That would be, I would consider that a whole food sweetener.
I never heard of that.
Yeah.
Now with yacon, and I have a really good video on that actually, and then on the yacon syrup, the same thing. They take the yacon root, they juice it, and then condense it down. So that one, I'm not really sure. I have my own yacon, and one of these days I'm going to actually juice it and then dehydrate it and see what the heck I get, to see if they're really doing anything else. But they also have Jerusalem artichoke syrup. But to get Jerusalem artichoke syrup, they got to juice the Jerusalem artichoke, and then they stop the enzymatic process, because all the fruit syrups, if they didn't stop the enzymatic process, it would like turn. So like they take agave syrup, and if agave syrup was really raw and it kept fermenting, it would ferment into tequila. But they stopped the enzymatic process to keep it sweet, to stop it from turning into alcohol. So when they do these processes, number one, it's an extracted food, and you're just getting pretty much the sugar without a lot of the cofactors. I'd rather eat whole yacon slices or whole Jerusalem artichoke, or I'd rather eat the coconuts, or I do want to try the coconut sap. They make the coconut sap out of the tree, then they actually ferment that into like a drink, into a beverage, which I really want to try. I think I tried it a long time ago, but I'm not really a big fan of the other sweeteners.
What about maple syrup?
So maple syrup, if you're not totally raw, it's raw. Maple syrup is not a raw foods product, but if you're not all raw, I think it's a better sweetener than others, because at least it's just the sap that's basically boiled down. But once again, I really encourage people to lose their sweet tooth, and get back to eating nature's sweets, and get some really ripe, delicious fruits. And that's another big issue I have, is a lot of the food in the trade, or in the commercial industry, they're just not as sweet as they could be because of the growing practices of the growers. They're not focusing on the nutritional density. They're focusing on the poundage, because the way our system works is that they get paid on the pounds, and they don't care how nutritious it is. They care that they're going to grow nice big apples that weigh more, so they get more money. And so when you grow food yourself, and hopefully some local farmers who are really aware of this, like actually Green String Farm, they do things to make their food taste better, like add rock dust minerals into their food. And I encourage everybody to visit them down there and buy some of their stuff, because it's definitely better. I recommend, just to get the best, you really got to do it yourself, grow your own. But I guess the next question is how to cut your fruit and vegetable bill by 50%. So actually, you could cut it by more than 50% by growing your own garden. But if you just want to cut it 50% and not have to do all the work of growing your own garden, which is really not work, it's really fun, and we all need exercise, you could actually go down to the wholesale produce terminal. So usually once every 2 weeks, I go down to the wholesale produce terminal in South San Francisco and San Francisco. You could go to one or the other. You don't need to go to both, but to get the best of both worlds and the lowest prices and the widest selection, if you go to both, that's definitely the best.
They're organic?
Well, most of the terminal is non-organic. There are some specific vendors that have organic only, and then some vendors will have organic sometimes. So how it is, basically, like Oliver's and supermarkets go to the wholesale produce terminal to buy their food by the case, and then they mark it up and sell it to you. So in most cases, they're marketing it up 50%. So if you go there directly with cash, they don't take credit cards, they don't take checks. You got to have cash, and you got to buy by the box only. They don't sell you a partial box. They won't sell you one head of lettuce if you buy by the box. So like the box I have over there, it's organic heirloom tomatoes. It's 10 pounds of organic heirloom tomatoes. Have a guess on how much that cost me this week?
$3.
$3. Wow, that'd be really good.
15?
I mean, how much do they organic heirloom tomatoes sell for the store? Like $5 a pound usually?
Yeah.
$10?
No, 15, 20.
So this box was 10 pounds. So I mean, if you went to Oliver's or somewhere to buy it, and they might charge you, $40 for that box, because these ones they consider overripe or like on their way out. They're a little bit soft, but they're fine for eating. These were $10 for 10 pounds of organic heirloom tomatoes. So you guys really, to go down there, you should save a lot of money.
Do they let anybody in?
Anybody could go in there. You just got to have cash, and you got to get there early, because they open from 1 a.m. and they close promptly at 10. But for better results, you got to get there not 8 or 9, or 6, 7, or 8. If you get there at 9, they don't like you so much, because you're getting there too late, and they're already packing up, ready to go home.
So where's it at?
So there's one in South San Francisco. It's on, I think, Produce Avenue. It's right across from the San Francisco airport, pretty much, or kitty corner from the airport. I have videos specifically on both of the markets, and I actually tell you where they are, and I tell you exactly how to work the market and how to get there and how to scope out the best deals. I won't really take the time to do that too much now. And another deal I got this week was organic blueberries. Now everybody knows how much organic blueberries cost, right?
Well,
$10 a basket.
$5 for 6 ounces, right?
Yeah.
So Oliver's had them on sale for $2.99 for
I
6
get them
ounces.
frozen at Costco.
Oh, frozen at Costco. Well, another thing I want to add is freshest is always bestest. But if you're getting them frozen, that's definitely better than eating something else. But I think fresh produce is far superior than frozen produce. So I rarely eat any frozen produce. nowadays. Of course, when I first got into raw foods, I ate a lot more frozen produce. Frozen vegetables have been blanched, so they have been cooked before they freeze them. So things like frozen corn, frozen peas, and frozen green beans, frozen vegetables, to lock in the color, they blanch them first. So a lot of raw food recipes may even use frozen peas and corn, but they're still cooked. So they're not technically raw. Frozen fruits, on the other hand, are not blanched. So they can still be considered raw, but I'd prefer to eat things fresh for higher levels of nutrition. And also, like frozen foods in general slow down our digestive process and takes more energy for our bodies to digest it. So I'd rather eat fresh. So anyways, back to the blueberries. Organic blueberries, and these were cases that were rough because like they had one or two going bad, and this is a real big liability to the wholesalers. They're just going to lose all their inventory and lose their money. So I had to pick through them, but I got a case of 12 4-ounce containers, and there's a good percentage of bad ones I'd have to pick out, but $6. So that's 50 cents per little
You end up eating
container.
them all in one before they go bad?
Yeah, so those ones I bought a couple days ago, and for breakfast every morning the first day I had 3 pounds because I hadn't had them in a while, 3 pounds of blueberries for breakfast. And then that was like I was overstuffed. So every day since then I've been eating 2 pounds a day for breakfast of blueberries.
Ooh, are you gonna turn blue?
So I think that's pretty much, that'll be pretty much my talk. Oh, and you had a question about hummus. So the edamame is definitely not raw. You can't really eat soybeans or most other beans raw because they have toxic lectins in them that are not good for us raw. You need to cook them. That being said, I would much rather favor you guys cooking like whole foods, lightly steamed or, boiled than eating some prepared processed foods, of course. Now, on the other hand, there's hummus. So hummus, if you buy in the store, it has been cooked, but you can make a raw hummus, which in the olden days, I used to sprout garbanzos and then, put them in the Vitamix with some tahini and some spices and stuff. And then I'd call that a hummus. But I learned very early that that's really not a good idea. Because even though the chickpeas are now sprouted, they still contain toxins in them that really give me bad gas and bloating. So unless you want bad gas and bloating, I highly encourage you guys not to do the, beanie hummus and do like a no bean hummus. So now people got smarter. They're doing like the sesame, and they're doing like the spices, and then they're doing zucchini as the base instead, and that works wonderfully. And just Google no bean hummus or raw hummus and look for ones with zucchini. All right. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode where I shared my talk with you guys. I like to, basically film the presentations I give to the audience and then put that up on YouTube so that you guys could also benefit from the information. One of my really big and strong beliefs is that, we need to live in an open source society where information is available. And, I make this available to you guys so that you guys can determine what you want to do. Of course, I always recommend that you guys eat more fresh fruits and vegetables. And my diet consists of mostly fruits and vegetables with barely anything else. And I think by eating fruits and vegetables, you can definitely get healthier. You can lose weight. You could have that mental clarity. You could have the energy to play with your 3-year-old kid or whatever you want to do. So the last thing is I want to encourage you guys to thumbs up this video if you liked it and like the format. And number 2, post down below the video the one thing that you've learned from this video that, above all else meant the most to you. So once again, my name is John Kohler with okraw.com. We'll see you next time. And remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're the best.